I'm really glad to see you tonight, and I hope that each time that you come, I'm a respecter of your time, and I want to make sure that you've received something because you've got dressed. There's so many other places that you could be, but you came to church tonight, and I think that it should be worth your while. I think that you should go out either a little bit more knowledgeable than when you came in, maybe your heart feeling a little bit better, maybe you have a little bit more hope than when you first came in, and if so, then I have done the job that God has called me to do. When we have a physical pain, like a headache, we can go take an aspirin, and usually that will make it better. If we've hurt our back, we can take a muscle relaxer or a Motrin or ibuprofen, and that helps us. But what do we do when our heart hurts? And I'm not talking about the physical hurt. I'm talking about the emotional hurt. What do you do when your heart is broken? What do you do when your heart hurts? Because you can't just go get a prescription and it heal and take away the pain. We all experience heartaches in our life. That's just part of life. But for each of those heartaches that we go through, if we don't walk away from God, there's something in it for us. Not only for us, but for somebody else. But what do I do when my heart is aching? Because see, when you have a heartache and you haven't dealt with it, it hurts other people. It affects those around you. It will show up in your relationships. It will show up in your day-to-day decisions. It will show up in your performance on the job. It will show up in every area of your life if you have a heartache that you haven't dealt with. So often we hear about rebound relationships. 9 times out of 10, those don't work out. Because when a person is brokenhearted, they're not thinking the same way. In fact, their personality is even a little bit different than before their heart got broken. And so sometimes they will jump just to another relationship. They call those rebound relationships. And more often than not, that causes 2 people's hearts to ache instead of just one. When my heart is hurting, my choices are not the best. They will impact my decisions, and they will make me settle for less than God's best in my life. In Proverbs, it says that we should guard our heart because every area of our life is affected by our heart and how we're feeling. So what do you do when your heart's broken? How do you get over a broken heart? The world says, well, just ignore it. Go on, you're tough. You can handle it. Or the world says, here's a prescription. It will not only numb your pain, though, it will numb your joy. It will numb your happiness. What do you do? How do you address it? But see, to get better, you're going to have to look at it. You're going to have to acknowledge that it's there. But we can't address it if we don't understand that our heart is aching. So what I'm talking about is a word that's familiar, grief. Grief is a deep sorrow that's felt as a response to a loss. We automatically go to losing a loved one, but there's grief in so many different ways. There's a loss of a job. There's a loss of a dream that you had that didn't come true. There's a loss of a relationship. There's a loss of who you used to be with your ability and who you are now with a disability. See, that's a grieving period. It produces a roller coaster of emotions. This last pandemic, when we went through and everything was shut down, that was a grieving period. There was people that they were going to get married. They had to cancel their wedding. There was people that held funerals by distance. Nobody could even be there with them. So many people had to cancel their travel plans. Many businesses didn't survive So there was grieving in so many areas. And so we have to ask ourselves not just, how are you? But how's your heart? Have you done a heart checkup lately? Have you asked yourself, how's my heart feeling about things? Am I walking around always feeling bruised? Or do I finally have some joy there? Where on this emotional roller coaster is my heart? C.S. Lewis, a famous author, when his wife passed away, he said, I never knew, because no one told me, that grief felt so close to fear, because then I feared losing everything because I had lost what I held dearest to me. Grief is not an evil emotion. It's actually natural, and it's a normal emotion for us to have. It's part of our healing process. Whenever you experience loss, that is grief, and that causes the heart to ache. Wherever there's loss, there's a heartache. But some people don't know that it's their heart that's hurting, because not always is a response to heartache tears. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes people, when they're grieving through the grief process, they get softer. They get a little bit more emotional. Other people get harder, and they shut people out because the pain makes them hard. They don't want to hurt any longer, so therefore we shut everything out. When people are hurt, it makes them angry so quick. If you have an issue with losing your temper, that's not your issue. Your issue is your heart. Your heart's broken. But you don't deal with that. So you just deal with this anger, this constant anger, when really you need to stop and acknowledge, I need to take a look at my heart. I need to see what's going on in my heart. Some people make a permanent decision on a temporary situation. What I mean by that is I got my heart broken in this relationship, so I'm never going to love again. You made a permanent decision on this temporary season in your life. I got hurt and betrayed. I'm not going to trust anybody again. Never going to let anybody into my life. And you know what you've done? You've just locked yourself into solitary confinement in a prison for the rest of your life. And yeah, we will get hurt. That's part of life. But the trade-off is so great. You know, we only hurt so much because we were fortunate that we loved so much. So many people have never gone through a grieving process because they had no hope, or they didn't have a good relationship. Count yourself blessed if you had your heart broken. And what I mean by that is you experienced love for a short amount of time, even if it was just a short amount of time. You experienced it. And when you lost it, that's when you grieved. We have to see the grief. We have to address it if it's ever going to get healed. See, even Jesus grieved. And you think, well, that's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy that he grieved. But in the Bible, one of the things that hurt my heart so much is I realized that God grieved. I thought he was above that. He's God. Because sometimes in my generation, crying was a sign of weakness. Actually, it's a sign of strength. Actually, it's a sign of being alive and having some healthy emotions, that you actually feel things. But so often we're told, buck up, don't cry. Especially if you're a guy, don't let him see you cry. And the idea that this God, who was beyond anything I could imagine, grieved and wept. And then I read about a Savior who his friend died, and even though he knew in just a few minutes, I'm going to bring him back to life. I'm going to hug his neck. We're going to have dinner together. We're going to talk together. But at that moment, his friend was laying dead in a tomb. Shortest verse in the Bible makes Jesus so real to me. he wept. That's all it said, but doesn't it say enough? So why do we think less of ourselves when we grieve over a situation? Jesus understands. He says, I'm close to the brokenhearted and the crushed in spirit. Why? Because he was brokenhearted and his spirit was crushed. He knows what that feels like. Grief is a price that you pay for caring, for loving. See, grief is not a weakness when you grieve. God intends for this to be part of your journey because it's part of our earthly experience. And in our loss, in him, we can get gain. We can find healing in him. It's part of our personal journey. We grieve, but it shouldn't imprison us and paralyze us for a lifetime. It should be a portion, a journey through time, but not for the rest of your life. I'm not saying that you get over, but I'm saying that you can go on and you can laugh again. You can have joy again. It doesn't mean that you don't miss what you lost, but it means that you're able to carry on because Jesus said that weeping endures for a night. We all have those nights in our lifetime. But he says, but joy can come in the morning. But see, the enemy wants you to stay in the grieving period. Grief is normal, but if we don't address it, then it mutates into something called despair. Despair is when you lose hope. Grief is when you feel like you've lost something and you experience that loss, but despair is a loss of hope. Please don't lose hope. But how do we stop grief from becoming into despair? Grief is, I lost my job. Despair is, I'm never going to get a job. Grief is, this relationship, it didn't work out. But despair is, I'm never going to be happy. Grief is, this door closed. Despair is, I'm never going to get a right opportunity. So I can't just leave you there with telling you part of the story. You all know what grief is. You all know what a heartache is. Now I have to tell you, how do we get to the other side of that heartache? And the way that I'm going to explain it tonight is we're going to look at a gentleman in the story by the name of David. And David had made a series of bad mistakes. And when you make bad mistakes, I wish I could say that it just stops with you. But your decisions, good or bad, affect all of those around you. And David was having to pay the consequence. A child that was born through an adulterous act was very sick. And David fell upon God's mercy. And he fasted. And he laid face down in the dirt outside. Because in those times when you were heartbroken, you would throw ashes upon your head to show how sorrowful you were. The ashes on top of his head, that wasn't good enough. I got to lay face down. Because my child is sick. And so it says that he prayed and he fasted. He wouldn't eat. His servants worried about him. And it says that after the seventh day it came to pass that the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, indeed, while the child was alive, we spoke to him, and he would not even listen. How can we tell him that the child is dead? He may do some harm. But when David saw that his servants were whispering, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said to his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. So David arose from the ground, He washed and anointed himself and changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and worshiped. Then he went to his own house, and when he requested, they set food before him, and he ate. So what did David do? How do I stop grief from becoming despair? Because if you know anything about the rest of David's story, his story doesn't stop there. He goes on to do some great and mighty things, and God blesses him in so many different areas because his grief did not turn to despair. But how did he get there? So there's three things that I want to look at that David did. First of all, it said that he wept. He wouldn't eat. He probably couldn't sleep. He wept, and he cried before God. How many of us are not honest with our feelings, much less with our Heavenly Father? See, in the Bible, for us to get saved, it says two things have to happen. You have to believe in your heart and confess with your mouth. They have to be on the same page. Otherwise, salvation doesn't happen. Oh, you can say it, but if you don't believe it, it's not going to change you inside. So how wrong is it when God knows our heart is broken, but he can't fix what you won't give to him? And you just stuff it down and you tell God, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm tough. I got this. It doesn't hurt. I've been hurt before. I'm used to this. It's going to affect you for the rest of your life, and you will not live up to God's potential for you, and you won't have the relationships that are healthy and joyful the way that he meant, as long as you keep denying that this heart inside here that's beating is broken in pieces. And you just shove it down, and you shove it down, and you shove it down, and you think that you're good, but ask the people around you, are you really good? Are your relationships happy? Are your friendships healthy? Are you healthy? Do you sleep good at night? Do you struggle through the day to keep tears from just flowing down your face? See, it's because you haven't dealt with this, and sometimes it feels like God's punishing because it's not getting any better. Well, it's because you haven't given it to him so he can fix it. You haven't been honest with him. He knows it all. Why don't you just come clean before him? See, Adam and Eve, after they had sinned, they had hidden away because now they felt shame. And God said, why did you hide? God knows it all. If you're angry and you're confused and you're hurt, don't pretend like everything's fine. Talk to him. See, by doing that, that shows you to him that you trust him, that you love him, that you think he's big enough to carry you when you can't take another step. When you don't bare your soul to him, that's saying, I don't believe that he's a loving father. I'm afraid that if I say how I'm feeling, then he'll walk away from me. Oh, how small is that God? That is not the God that had his son die on a cross for you. He already knows how you feel. So tell him. If you're tired of walking around trying to smile and your heart's broken, tell him about it. But you're not supposed to stay there for the rest of your life, but your first step in getting better is to tell him about it. Aren't you tired of just always stuffing it down and being so strong and going on? And inside, every day you're dying just a little bit more because your heart's sick? The only way that you can get well is if you give it to him so he can fix it. So it says that David fell before God and he wept. He was real with God. But then when it didn't turn out the way that he wanted, then what does it do? What does David do? The next thing that he did is he washed himself. It's so important for you to bare your soul before God and the things that need to be fixed, because God can't deliver you when you're in denial. But if you will allow yourself to feel it, then He can heal it. Then He can make it better. When we expose our emotions to a loving Father that already knows how we feel, then that's trust. So it says that the next thing that He did is he got up and He washed Himself. He'd been laying in dirt for 7 days. He was dirty. But it wasn't just an outward cleansing. It was to symbolize an inward cleansing, because in those days it was customary before you went, especially the high priest, to go into God's presence. You washed yourself as a symbolic thing of I'm washing off the world's cares. I'm getting ready to step into your presence. And so when He washed Himself from things that were trying to attach to Him. What do I mean by that? Bitterness, anger, impatience, frustration, bad decisions, revenge. I need to get them back for what they did or what they didn't do. See, because that's what the enemy wants to be attached to you, and then it changes your personality. God says, I want you to wash yourself. In other words, when you come to God with your feelings, then you tell Him, wash me. Wash over me with your presence. Wash over me with the things that don't need to be attached to my heart, the bitterness, the unforgiveness. Wash me clean. When you lay it before Him on the table, that's when He can heal and help make you whole again. So He says, I washed myself. When you're grieving, sometimes you say things you normally wouldn't say. When you're grieving, you think of doing things that you normally would never do. What is that? That's the enemy trying to keep you in that state. But God says, I've got some cleansing to do. After you're done weeping, I've got some cleansing to do. And you talk to those emotions and you say, get off of me. You're not gonna keep me down forever. I'm not going to carry around this hatred and this revenge and these thoughts that aren't good and holy and pure thoughts, because the enemy wants to keep you there in that grieving process for the rest of your life. The devil wants to stay on you and he wants to attack your heart, but you got to get him off of you. In the Bible, when Jesus was hanging on the cross and He had died, they put a spear in His side. 2 things came out. We would think just one. Blood came out, but then also it says that water came out. That was a cleansing process. Because if Jesus, if anybody would have had a right to hang on to some revenge, some bitterness, some unforgiveness, maybe even some hatred, by what He went through, He had every right. But it shows that even on the cross, the water came out and cleansed Him. It washed it all away. And because it could wash it all away on Him, it can wash it all away on you. He says, I need to wash myself. See, the enemy wanted to use Judas to burn Jesus so bad on Thursday that on Friday, Jesus wouldn't forgive the thief that was next to Him on the cross. We all have a Judas in our life. But because of God's goodness and His mercy, you can be like Jesus and even forgive those that weren't deserving of your forgiveness. And then it says, He worshiped. If you haven't listened to anything else that I've said tonight, I want you to pay attention to this, because to me, it's the most important. You say, how can I worship when it was in his control to change it and he didn't change it? How can I worship when I was doing right and I got hurt so badly? How can I worship? Here's why. David knew that he couldn't be mad at the only one that could fix him when he was broken. That's how David could worship even with a broken heart, because he thought, he's my source. He's my hope. He's my comfort. So the way to help get over grieving and not stay in despair is to worship the one that can change it. But so many people, when something happens and they're grieving and they're broken, they do the worst thing possible. They run from the only one that can carry them through. They run from the only one that can fix them. They run from the only one that can replace things in their life that was taken away. So when you get hurt and you feel it's unfair, when you lose your job and you're the only Christian on the line and the sinner, he still gets to keep his job. When the sinner next to you is building onto his house and you can barely make your payments and you're going to be losing your house, don't let that grief overtake you to turn into despair. Turn to the one that can help you, that can make it better. Rather than blame him, run to him and worship. And what I'm saying is, don't be insincere. Be real with him, but fall into the arms of the one that can comfort. The one that can send somebody by. It says, hey, for some reason, I was just thinking of you. I wanted to call and let you know that I'm here for you. See, that's God at work. We think, oh, that song just happened to come on. That's a great DJ that played that. What a great coincidence. No, that song that came on that lifted you when you needed it most, that was God holding you. That was God comforting you. So the way that David was able to move on as he was real with God, he acknowledged it. He didn't pretend it didn't exist. And then he washed himself of the things that he didn't want sticking onto him, because that's not who he was. And then he worshiped the one that could help, the only one that could truly heal those broken areas in his life. Some of you have gone through so much heartache, so don't waste it. Don't waste it, and don't let it waste your life. See, when we recover, reading on in the Bible, David went and he comforted his wife, the mama that lost the child. See, he knew what that felt like, and his comfort meant something to her. His heart was broken. So when we are recovering and we recover, our recovery puts us in a position for your ministry. You now know how to help those that you didn't know before. You no longer now just empathize with them. You can sympathize with them. You can say, yeah, my journey's not the same, but I know what heartache feels like. I know what that loss feels like in this area. I know what it feels like to think that you've met the one and for that to be taken away. I know what it feels like. See, that becomes one of the greatest ministries ever. So when you get through your recovery, and as you're recovering, you can say, I know now how to help because someone helped me. My Heavenly Father helped me get through when I didn't think I could take another step. Somehow I made it through. And I can help you make it through. I can introduce you to this Savior that knows what it feels like to weep, knows what it feels like to feel betrayed, knows what it feels like to have your family turn on you, knows what it feels like to be homeless. I can introduce you to this Savior. He's been there. He can help you. And then in the Bible, it tells us that we're his hands and we're his feet. So if he had to go through it, why are we surprised when we go through something? See, because if we're to be his hands and his feet, that means what we went through, somebody's going to cross our path, and we're going to be able to help them just like we were helped. Someday, God will let you see on the other side of all the people that you helped. The area where the devil attacks you the worst is the area where God wants to use you the most. God wants to heal you, not just for you, but because somebody needs what you're able to give. So he gives us grace to weep and to wash and to worship. And in the Bible, it tells us that he's come to heal the brokenhearted and bind up the wounds. Don't be ashamed of going through the grieving process. Somebody tells you you're weak, I say they're a liar. They don't know what they're talking about. It's normal. It's a process of life. I do want to tell you one thing, if we're talking about a loss of loved ones, that helped me tremendously. And I've shared this before, but I want to share it again because somebody needs to hear it. When you lose a person that's close to you, no matter what the relationship is, not only do you have to grieve the loss of them no longer physically being in the world with you, you also have to grieve who you used to be. Because you will never be that person again. Because see, the person you were when they were here is a complete different person that's having to navigate life without them. So, and this even goes for jobs. I've heard of people who they were was tied up in their label, their title, their position. And when they had their position, then they met the world with confidence and strength, and I can do anything, and I'm secure. And they lost that title, and they lost who they were because it was tied up in that job. Well, they had to go through a grieving process. And you also have to grieve who you used to be so that you can accept who you are now. And who you are now, sometimes you don't even know for a little while. I know that I kept waiting when I experienced some losses. I kept waiting to feel like me again because I was used to like getting over and going on. And I couldn't get over. I was going on, but I couldn't get over. I couldn't get back to feeling like me, like who I used to be. And that's when I had to realize I had to say goodbye to who I used to be. Because she wasn't there anymore. Because see, a part of her, I don't want to say personality, but a part of her heart was forever changed. So that's when it's really important to draw close to God during those times so that you don't pick up traits of things that you don't want to be. Because that's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to have you harden your heart and secure yourself away so that you don't hurt any longer. That's not life. That's not living. So ask God to go on this journey with you, because when you get on the other side, if you stay with him, you'll actually be better than you used to be. You'll be smarter than you used to be. You'll be stronger than you used to be. If you hold on to him, you're going to be wiser than you used to be. And if you hold on to him, you're going to be more like him, because you're going to be more compassionate when somebody says, oh, I lost this, whatever it is in my life. You'll understand a little bit more what that grieving feels like. And then that's when you can step 100% into this ministry, this destiny that God has for you and I. So as I get ready to sing the closing song, I know I gave you a lot to think about. And I'm going to tell you right up front, if you haven't dealt with any of your losses, it's a rough journey. It's not going to be fun. But you don't have to do it alone. Just be real with God. If you have good days, that's great. But when you have those days that it's just bad and it just hurts and you don't think you can stop the tears, don't run from him. Run to him, because he's the one that can help heal and make you whole again. I wish, as a pastor and one who cares and loves you guys, I wish that you would never have any more bad days ever. But that's not life. So I am going to tell you to hold close to the one that can carry you through those bad days. And don't run from the only source that can heal and make you whole. God bless you, my friends. Would you do me a favor, and I have you do this every so often, but take your hand and put it over your heart. Thank you. Whatever it is that you're grieving, it could be a lost dream, it could be a lost childhood, it could be people betraying you, it could be a loss loved ones, it could be a loss of your physical health, your finances, emotional, whatever it is. I want you to know that God is a healer. God said that he came to comfort. Jesus said, I came to give you life. So don't let the enemy keep you stuck, because there's so much good out there. There's so many wonderful things to experience and so many wonderful people to invite into your life. But if you keep that wall up, you're going to miss out on wonderful relationships. So, dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for being a good father, for being a father that understands, for being a father that we can run to when the world has knocked us down. Thank you, Jesus, for the life that you came to live so that you could walk on this earth, so that when we hurt, you could actually say, I understand what that feels like. When we're alone and feel betrayed, you can say, I understand what that feels like. Lord, help us to draw close to you, because truly, you're our only hope. You're the only one that can take our sadness and turn it into joy. You're the only one that can take our weakness and carry us until we're strong. Lord, so many people have lost so many things in their life. Lord, help them as they go through this process. And even if it's their own fault that they're in this situation, let them realize that they need to forgive themselves just as you have forgiven them. And if they'll give it to you and quit holding on to it, that you'll make something great out of their life and out of this experience. Help us to knock the enemy off of our shoulders. Help us to open up our heart to let your love come in and flow not only in it to heal it, but through it to heal others that have walked the similar paths. Thank you for loving us. Thank you that you have a plan for us. Thank you for always forgiving us and for never leaving us. And thank you for being our way maker and our fixer and our anchor in the storm. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.